So sorry. So today actually I prepared quite a bit of slides. I don't know if I can get through all of them, but I'll give it a shot. So this actually started from actually while I was back in graduate school, where my thesis professor told me actually like how people experience a city is actually there's major infrastructure renewal, which happened around every 50 to 60 years. And then actually the first round of this kind of infrastructure renewal started in the early 20th centuries, where when we start to have reinforced concrete and elevators, and also the kind of steel frame technologies, where the city start building from low bearing buildings from like 4 to 6 stories to all of a sudden you can build up to like 14 to 15 stories, where actually that begins our concept of a metropolis. And where like the current urban planning started to have zoning, like the kind of modern version of zoning, setbacks, and also sun shadings. Yeah. So and then another 50 years afterwards, around 50 years afterwards, after World War II, so the U.S. military after World War II have the Highway Act of 1956, where the U.S. government used federal fundings to build an entire a national highway network. And then from that point on, where the city started to see as city as machines, where vehicles becomes a one mode of ways to experience the city. So this is the FDR Drive, where it was spearheaded by Robert Moses back in the 1950s and 60s. And now you can still feel that presence of highways uh, uh, um, dominating a lot of the major cities like New York, LA, or Beijing, or Russia, right? And then now actually there's another around 50 to 60 years, except that this round of this kind of infrastructure renewal is not just with the physical infrastructure, meaning that like the solutions, when we think about the solutions of solving, let's say, transportation or communication problems or public health problems, is no longer just relying on just the physical infrastructures. So think about now, if we were to think about solving a transportation problem, it's no longer just building highways using concretes, but actually for digital infrastructures like Uber, right? In some sense, if you think about Uber, what it is really is a top-down system which fitting into a aggregate demands, a real-time aggregate demands, right? So previously, as we know it, a lot of the times when we study architecture and urban design, a lot of these the system's very top down. This is actually the first time where we started to think about the city as a dynamic system, meaning that like the top down system and the aggregate bottom up demands is one thing. Yeah. So this concept actually, if you go to the World Expo, this is actually one of the major theme in the World Expos in Osaka these days. And actually, this diagram is actually from Noise Architect. Actually, he was also one of the architects for the expos as well. And then so we start to see actually the kind of mirroring of the physical and the digital world. So I've talked to almost everyone. Like this already happened. It's just that we haven't been able to see it. Right? So the most evident is actually if I were to ask you this question, if you were to choose to bring your cell phone and your wallet and you can only choose one, most of the time these days people will choose the wallet. But if I asked you that question 10 years ago or 20 years ago, most people would choose to pick their wallets, right? So if you think about this, actually how we are experiencing the our city now these days is actually through a lot of these types of mediums that would allow us to access to the kind of digital infrastructures while we navigate within the cities. So, but one thing that's actually I've learned quite a bit actually is actually from a citizen science project that me and Loftwork was supporting, which is SafeCast, which think about the aggregates from the bottom up way. of gathering information. So SafeCast is not a Loftwork project. It's actually an NGO project. Actually, it's born out of the nuclear meltdown in Fukushima back about 13 years ago or 14 years ago. Yeah. So there's videos about this. I'll show you. Can you hear the video, the voice? The audio you can hear, right?
So the three of us are just talking.
Yes, we have.
We find information.
Okay.
Oh, we can't find radiation data anywhere. And it's not because it's not being published, it's because it doesn't exist. Nobody was paying attention to this stuff. And so that's when we decided that we could start pooling our resources to get equipment in people's hands and go collect some of this data and publish it so that there would at least be something available. Within a week, we had 20, 25 people all in this Skype chat room brainstorming and trying to figure out a solution to this problem.
We're looking online and we couldn't get any Geiger counters. Literally within 24 hours, the whole world supply was sold out. When we realized that we couldn't get the equipment, we decided that the only way to get this done is let's go and build it ourselves. So we came up with the idea that if we put a Geiger counter on a car and we drive around with it, we can collect radiation and put it on the map. Only problem was is we didn't have the equipment, we didn't have the system. So solution was go to Tokyo Hackerspace, where there's lots of people that knew how to put things together. And on the 6th day after we had the idea, we had a working system. The next day we were off to Fukushima doing our first measurements.
As we started taking measurements, we saw that a reading can change like 100% just by crossing a street. And that's when we realized that it was really important for us to take very granular street by street readings every 5 seconds and publish really granular data so that people can drill all the way down and see exactly what the reading is right in front of their house, not an average of the entire city.
After a couple of months, we realized that it would be much better for volunteers to have something that would be very concise and compact. As we redeveloped the whole system and we were able to use Arduinos and open hardware to fit it into a bento box. And that's how we came up with the bento Geiger system. Once we built one, we taught other people to build many more of them, and that really allowed us to scale up dramatically.
While this is a disaster, this is a tremendous opportunity to take this tons of data that's being collected and try to understand what the effects on people is. That can only happen if we share the data and we put the medical data together with the radiation data. And right now, the key to combining data is to make it open. And so one of the really important features of the SafeCast project is we're using a CC0 public domain dedication for all of the data so that we can try to get people to do data science on it. We found out from Fukushima the experts really weren't very helpful. And in fact, that citizen science actually works. We were able to collect more data than all the projects in history, and a lot of scientists came together. And by pulling through the network, we were able to become the best in the world. So I think what SafeCast proves is that all the preparation in the world, all the money in the world still fails if you don't have a rapid, agile, resilient system. Because of the internet, because of our agility, because of our openness, within weeks, we had the world's experts together to do this. And within a year, we're the biggest project that has ever existed in this kind of monitoring. And I think it really shows that with the right people and the right resources and agility, you can beat the pants off of any government, pre-planning, or institutional system.
So actually, as a urban designer, so we're still involved in this project. And as an urban designer, actually, I've learned a lot in this project. One of the key points is actually because previously, like, of course, we all use like GIS data as like data that are being gathered for us. But this is actually the first time that we actually have the capability to gather our own data, right? To kind of build our own tools to be able to gather the data that we needed. So actually, I think this as an architecture, as an architect and urban designer, this is actually a very critical change that we need to adapt for the next wave of this kind of integrations of this dynamic system is to have to be able to have the capability to build the tools to gather our own data. And also, this is actually from an empowerment perspective in the case of SafeCast, because this is one thing that, like, when during in Fukushima, the citizens actually don't know where it's safe to be, and because there's, like the video said, there's actually not enough data to be there. Actually, at one point, that people were being relocated to areas that has higher level radiations because there's no precise data for it. So for this project, actually, the SafeCast group worked with the volunteer worked with the local experts, but also training people to build the Geiger counters and go measure themselves. and also teaching the students in terms of what is radiation, what is. So this is actually high school students actually are learning how to build their own Geiger counters and actually learn about radiations and also what is like radioactive materials and all that. And then this project also works with Japan Postal Services, where they start to mount the Geiger counters onto the scooters that are delivering the mails around town. So you can see actually from within 6 months, actually the map becomes a populator with a lot more live data during the time. And that doesn't stop there. So this project doesn't stop just with Japan, but also this actually has been spread out to other places, including Taiwan. So this is actually part of a work group that a citizen science work group that we have started in NCKU in Tainan. So the National Cheung Kong University, where we started also to let different people to learn about how to build their own data network with the base in China, NCKU, but actually spreading out to Tainan cities. Yeah, so actually they learn how to build the device and also be able to understand how to contextualize to have a local strategies to deploy these types of actions. So one of the groups actually like to work with the cyclist groups within the university. So in a way that to spread out and to this is so within about an 8 weeks period, actually they were able to map out quite a extensive area within Tainan as well. And also this project is actually started to spread continuously in Europe, in US, and different places as well, and also like actually in Ukraine as well, where they also continue to monitor the nuclear facilities over there as well. Yeah, so you can see the data points that are being expanded throughout the last 14 years. Yeah, so just very quickly, so I don't think I have, so that was kind of a non-commercial project, and also, but at the same time, in terms of digital infrastructures, we also work with like kind of commercial projects with like, so this is the Parco in Shibuya in Japan, where they started to think about the 21st century of what is the new typology for the Japanese department stores. So in a way, so that's why we work with actually Styly, which actually using AR and VR to be able to visualize some of these the datas for commercial uses. So I'll skip through some of these because I'm running out of time. But so for this part, we work with different creators and also Styly to be able to reduce the entry level for creators or designers to be able to use AR or VR as part of the design process. And at the end, we work with Parco in Shibuya, the headquarters, to create a kind of virtual space. So instead of just with the physical space, there's actually a virtual Parco right above. But also at the same time, we started to spread out to the crossing, the Shibuya crossing. So this is part of a larger effort called Shibuya 5G, where you start to be able to see almost like the neighborhood as a performance centers with all the commercial activities. So this is actually another types of projects where you can start to think about Shibuya as a aquarium from an AR perspective. So with the AR scene, with the location where it's almost like the whole space filled up as if you're underwater. So right now, I think that this AR is still limited with the form factors of the our phones. But actually, if you imagine this form factor is actually about to change quite rapidly. So you can see that this is actually the first prototype of the AR glasses. So we can see that this is going to be more and more accessible for daily users to be able to overlay the digital information with the physical space. Yeah. And then last but not least, if I have 1 more minute. So this is actually for our own B2B use, where we started to develop our own tools to be able to have a multi-users urban design tools to be able to see the different layers of the site constraint, actually the digital flow, the data flow, transportation flows and all that, and also having a real-time adjustments for adjusting the FAR within the site. And also you can see what are the types. So this is actually going to be quite useful as we think about it as actually for public engagements, because as we were doing public engagement in different town halls, actually people wanted to engage, but at the same time with the physical models, you can't really do anything with it. So this is actually to adjust also for the sun shading site. So for how the massing is going to be able changing the site conditions and all that. So thank you very much. Sorry.